Do you watch it?
No.
No?
Don't scrunch your face.
I'm sorry. Because you're the third person I've talked to who said they don't even watch it and they work here. You just deal with what's on top of people's heads, right?
Right.
You don't deal with what's in their heads, right? Truth does have a way of coming out, and sometimes it's suppressed for a long time. New documents emerge. Historians reveal things that weren't revealed before. I believe so. I believe the American people deserve the truth. Now, where does Bill sit?
He has an office upstairs.
I had hoped to confront Bill O'Reilly, but he wasn't there. He's one of the loudmouth talk show hosts that define Fox's angry white man attitude, well calculated as a tool of polarization politics, long practiced on right-wing radio. After a year of uncritical reporting, to his credit, he admitted that he was wrong about WMDs.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have come not to bury Rupert Murdoch, but to praise him.
Full, fair, and balanced coverage. The Fox News Channel.
Fox News may seem a fun place to its fans and a cartoon to its critics, but its ideological zeal is serious and carefully calculated, as longtime former producer Charlie Arena revealed on a media website. Quote, "The roots of Fox News Channel's day-to-day on-air bias are actual and direct. They come in the form of an executive memo distributed electronically each morning, addressing what stories will be covered and often suggesting how they should be covered. The memo is the Bible." Fox's response? This charge is unfounded. People want to work here. Fox coverage included overly dramatic reports by Geraldo Rivera and Iran-Contra conspirator Colonel Oliver North.
I will tell you right now, Counsel, and all the members here gathered, that I misled the Congress.
Colonel North's war stories were blatant exercises in cheerleading and denounced the anti-war movement.
This is the city garbage dump.
I wonder where all the peace protesters never protest this kind of stuff.
Could be planning to attack Westerners overseas.
What was called the Fox effect drove all the TV coverage to the right. No network wanted to be accused of being unpatriotic.
Arnett gave an interview to Iraqi television in which he criticized American war planning and said his reports about civilian casualties in the Iraqi resistance were encouraging to anti-war protesters in America.
The American war planners misjudged the determination of the Iraqi.
Veteran correspondent Peter Arnett was targeted by Fox News for his decision to say on Iraqi TV what he was already saying on MSNBC.
If I'm wrong, you didn't go on Iraqi TV to say, I support Saddam Hussein, did you? You didn't endorse one side or the other.
I didn't endorse one side. But it was part of the hysteria that had developed surrounding this war. Now, there's a degree of hysteria about every war that America participates and just gets involved in, and this was part of the hysterical reaction, and I was basically, just swept up in that incredible explosion of anger. I think there were 157 cartoons of me in the newspaper the next morning, most of them in bed with Saddam Hussein. Management called up and says, look, the pressure is too great. We've had thousands of emails and calls, and it's time we have to drop you.
What I've learned, and has gone unreported until now, is that those emails were not from the public at large, but part of an orchestrated campaign by Free Republic, a right-wing online network. We were freaked, an official at National Geographic told me, explaining that 20,000 emails calling Arnett a traitor bombarded their executives, who then panicked and discharged him. The Freepers boasted of their success. Before the war, NBC fired popular anti-war talk show host Phil Donahue, replacing him with strident right-wingers in a move to outfox Fox. An MSNBC executive called Fox the patriotism police.
The rest of the world looked at my firing, is another example of American media caving into government.
What about Al Jazeera and that, publishing those gruesome pictures of dead soldiers?
I think there's something that is culturally Arab about that.
News. Fair, balanced, and unafraid.
But all of the networks more or less signed on to the official rationale. A study found widespread misperceptions among viewers. The people with the most misinformation watched the Fox News channel, although viewers of other channels were also receptive to inaccuracies. Public broadcasting viewers and listeners were misled the least. This Canadian study highlights another misperception about the media itself. Quote, most Americans were not aware of how one-sided and biased the coverage had been. They believed the news media had served the country well.
Nothing like this has happened.
The war in Iraq continues, and no one takes you closer than CNN.
In this war, what had once been known as the CNN effect had faded, but CNN was still a news leader. I learned that CNN mounted 2 news teams, one for the U.S. channel and one for the rest of the world on CNN International. Was it just different strokes for different folks?
Explain to me why CNN had one type of coverage for America and one type for the rest of the world.
I'm not so sure it was different. The content was the same. The presentation sometimes is different. American audiences have certain expectations of how the news is given to them.
The missile bomb firing apparently.
People aren't going to hang out on the screen forever and watch what what your long explanations. They want to know quickly what's happened because they have a job to do too, and. That's what our job is, to give them that.
For me, it's a huge difference to be able to get international news. One of the benefits I had living in Atlanta was I was there in the heart of an international newsroom. As soon as I stepped outside, domestic media never gave me that. It's a real shame, actually, especially for the world's most powerful nation.
In just 3 weeks, the U.S. military seized Baghdad with a small army of journalists tagging along. Robert Pelton, operating unilaterally now, observed the network news operations.
When you're a journalist in Baghdad, you live in a fancy hotel, you're hooked to the internet all the time. You've got people in New York making decisions for you, sending you story ideas that you are going to go out and do. You get up in the morning, you've got a driver, you've got an air-conditioned GMC, you get a driver, a translator, a cameraman, you get a security guy, little kind of British guy with tattoos on his arms, and off you go to shoot the story. You put your vests on, get your sound bites, you come back in time to cut it together, and then the talking head does the stand-up, boom, off it goes.
Goodbye, Saddam!
Thanks to a recently released U.S. Army report, we now know this most dramatic image of the Iraq War was engineered by a psychological operations unit that made it seem like it was spontaneous. Many TV outlets reported their stunt as evidence of the freedom, which was now said to be Iraq's. Mission accomplished, proclaimed President Bush in a scene out of the movie Top Gun. Washington Post military reporter Tom Ricks disagreed with this assessment.
Failures. I think the single biggest media failure was a failure that the Bush administration committed and the media committed together, which is we all tore down the goalpost at halftime. On April 9th, we said game over. It turned out the game was half over.
The post-invasion storyline quickly changed from liberation to occupation to resistance. There was massive looting. There were pro-Saddam protests and daily attacks on U.S. soldiers. Almost none of the invasion coverage anticipated this post-war chaos. While some TV crews remained, most of the embeds were withdrawn, upsetting military commanders like Scott Rudder.
15 April when everyone left, a new breed came over. These individuals were not part of the war, very excited about getting the information, getting it there. On the Sheraton Hotel as well as the Palestine Hotel, you can imagine huddles of reporters around high-paid taxi cab drivers to launch out, to get the story, to show up in your unit without any type of coordination or efforts. You can imagine them huddling around a Bearcat scanner for the bad news.
The search for WMDs was getting nowhere fast.
No one asked me to come here and fight for someone's oil. You know what? Because half my company doesn't even own a car. You know why we came here and fought? We came here and fought for all the beautiful ladies back home and a nice cold Coke. That's why we're here kicking off in somebody's butt. Thanks a lot.
By year's end, when no WMDs were found, officials called it a moot point and sought to change the subject. By then, the post-war war claimed more American lives than the invasion. Stephen Marshall of Guerrilla News Network went to Baghdad in October 2003.
Each of the major networks has sort of one crew who travel around from bomb site to bomb site. It's all sort of guarded by the military with huge checkpoints and, concrete barriers, which doesn't give them an opportunity to cover what I would call the Arab street, or the true sort of experience of the Iraqi people.
The reporting from Iraq quickly degenerated into a catalog of incidents.
What's really happening now is that you have a situation where there's a bombing, a suicide bombing, say at the Baghdad hotel where we were at, and all of a sudden, everyone gets in their truck and whips over there with their security guards, and everyone's on scene. I mean, most of the people who are there are sort of adventure journalists. They're the guys who, really, they're stringers who get paid quite a lot of money to go and work in these countries, and they're simply there to get the best pictures they can. And in many ways, I found it to be very cynical. We met a lot of photographers and shooters who were really there, and all they wanted to do was find the next disaster, get there on time, get the right footage, get back to the Palestine hotel and start drinking beer. I mean, really, it's, in Iraq, it's the truism. It's never been more absolute that if it bleeds, it leads. The only thing they want to get out of Iraq are bloody civilians, or in the best case scenario, military officials or military or soldiers who've been hit by bombs. That's the images they want to get, which is ironic because for the administration, those are the worst types of images.
And then Saddam Hussein was captured. Time magazine took Jesus off of its cover and put Saddam on. Every network played it big, as if it was the second coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
The footage was supplied by the Pentagon. It was a major propaganda coup for Washington, even though it was later reported in the region that it was the Kurds, not the U.S. military, who first found the Iraqi leader in that hole.
Inside a small walled compound.
This is a picture of an Iraqi prisoner of war.
The pornography of violence took an unexpected turn when these prison photos surfaced showing abuses by U.S. soldiers of detainees in a notorious Iraqi gulag.
Many of the pictures, Americans, both men and
CBS broke the story in late April 2004, but also admitted holding it up at the Pentagon's request for 2 weeks.
Are being court-martialed.
Their report permitted a U.S. general to shift blame onto a few individuals without exploring the systemic abuse documented in a military investigation.
We're appalled as well. These are our fellow soldiers. These are the people we work with every day. They represent us. They wear the same uniform as us, and they let their fellow soldiers down.
CBS's report aired in the end of April. By early July, the Pentagon had still not released its full investigation or its torture videos, and the press was no longer pressing them to do so. Why did it take so long for this story to surface? I later found this video of the same prison shot by Amnesty International in July 2003. They were alleging torture then.
We've documented or heard allegations of mistreatment or torture of prisoners.
While most of the world was shocked by the pictures, administration supporters were minimizing the well-documented torture.
It was like a college fraternity prank to stack up naked men.
Exactly! Exactly my point!